This is Q13 Fox News at 10.
We begin tonight with breaking news. Seattle police are investigating possible body parts found in a dumpster in front of a home in the Central District. Tina Patel is there right now. So Tina, what can you tell us about this situation?
Well, Jamie, Seattle police say that this discovery was made in a recycling bin right across the street from where we are now. A homeowner came out here around 4 o'clock, found what looked like body parts, and immediately called police.
April 9, 2016, 2:47 a.m., Renton, Washington. Inside this house, something unspeakable is happening. What happens in the next 14 hours will shock a city, horrify a nation, and prove that the most dangerous predator is the one who's been sitting beside you all along. 14 hours later, 10 miles away, a man drags his recycling bin from the curb. Inside, 3 white garbage bags. Inside those bags, human remains. A foot, an arm, a head with the face still intact. Her name, Ingrid Lyne, 40 years old, mother of 3, beloved nurse. Last seen Friday night on what seemed like a perfect first date to a baseball game. 72 hours earlier, she was laughing in the stands, completely unaware that the man beside her had a past so dark, even his own parents feared him enough to file a restraining order. A past that included 6 states, multiple violent crimes, and a chilling obsession with a movie about a serial killer who dismembers his victims. By the time police discovered what he'd done to Ingrid, he'd vanished. Her car, stolen. Her body, scattered across 3 locations in Seattle. And the evidence in her home would reveal a crime scene so disturbing, even veteran homicide detectives had never seen anything like it. But it all started here. Saturday morning, April 9th, with 3 little girls who just wanted to see their mommy. But where was Ingrid? And why was there blood, so much blood, hidden in places no one thought to look? Quick question, drop a comment below. Where are you watching from and what time is it where you are? That bloody handprint? It belonged to Ingrid. But what investigators didn't know yet was that it wasn't left during the murder. It was left after. When she was already dead. When he was moving her body. When she was still reaching. Georgia Base, Ingrid's mother, arrives with a spare key. What she finds inside sends chills down her spine. Ingrid's purse. Her wallet. Her cell phone. Her computer. Her tablet. Everything is there. Everything except Ingrid. For a mother, these weren't just items. They were proof that something terrible had happened. Ingrid would never leave without her phone. She would never abandon her daughters without a word. Georgia and Ingrid shared a phone account. Scrolling through the call logs, one number appears repeatedly. A Montana area code. Recent calls. Late-night texts. This number belonged to a man Ingrid had been seeing. A man named John. At 10:42 a.m., Georgia sends a text. "Hi, this is Ingrid's mom. Have you seen her or heard from her?" The response comes minutes later. "My name is John. I thought she was with her kids today." Georgia's fingers tremble as she types back, asking when he last saw her daughter. His response seems measured, almost rehearsed. "We went to the Mariners game last night, but we didn't stay the night together because she has her kids today." But that wasn't true. The kids weren't with Ingrid. They were supposed to be. Georgia texts one more time. "A police officer needs to speak to you as you may be the last person who saw her." There's no response. By noon, Renton police have been called. Ingrid Lyne is officially reported missing. But John Charlton wasn't silent because he was scared. He was silent because at that exact moment he was standing in front of a recycling bin 10 miles away, making sure the bags were properly hidden. Making sure no one would find what he'd done. At least, not yet. While Georgia Base was calling 911, while Phil Lyne was trying to calm 3 terrified daughters, while Ingrid's friends were posting missing person flyers online, Mike Novasio was about to make a discovery that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Central District, Seattle. 10 miles from Ingrid's Renton home. A neighborhood with tree-lined streets and well-kept homes. On this Saturday afternoon, resident Mike Novasio is bringing in his recycling bin from the curb. Something is off. The bin feels unusually heavy. His 911 call would later be played in court. This is going to sound really bizarre, but I went to go grab my recycling bin and there were 3 white trash bags in the recycling bin and I went to lift them out and honestly it's freaking me out, but it looks like it's a foot. Seattle police rush to 21st Avenue and East Pine Street. What they find defies comprehension. 3 white garbage bags. Inside one, a human head, the face still intact. Inside another, an arm. The third, a leg and a foot. The packaging is meticulous, almost professional. Each bag carefully sealed. The remains deliberately separated. Detectives can identify the victim from the face. Even before official confirmation, they know. This is Ingrid Lyne. News spreads like wildfire. A mother. A nurse. Dismembered and discarded like trash in a recycling bin. The community is horrified. But this is just the beginning. Because while police secured that first scene, while Mike Novasio gave his statement, while reporters descended on the quiet neighborhood, 2 more bags were sitting in other locations across Seattle. Waiting. Decomposing. And one of them contained something that would reveal just how long John Charlton spent dismembering Ingrid's body. Something that proved he took his time. That he was careful. Those saw marks weren't random. Forensic analysis would later reveal that John Charlton spent approximately 4 hours dismembering Ingrid's body. 4 hours of methodical cutting. 4 hours while her daughters slept peacefully at their father's house, dreaming of seeing mommy tomorrow. But who was the monster capable of such calculated cruelty? John Robert Charlton. 37 years old. And he had been hiding in plain sight. A criminal history spanning 6 states. Aggravated robbery in Utah, 2006. Felony theft in Montana, 2009. Grand theft auto. Assault. 3rd-degree larceny. By the time he met Ingrid, John Charlton was homeless, drifting between day labor jobs, battling alcoholism. They met online. In March 2016, Ingrid, 2 years divorced and navigating single motherhood, decided to try online dating. She matched with John. By all accounts, they'd been seeing each other for about a month. Friends said she seemed happy. But there were warning signs. Dark, disturbing signs that Ingrid likely never knew about. In 2006, Charlton's own parents filed a protection order against him. They described him as volatile, intoxicated, trying to provoke fights. In their sworn statement, they revealed something chilling. Their son had taken the movie Hannibal, about a serial killer who dismembers his victims from their shelf, handed it to his mother, and told her she should watch it and beware. On his Plenty of Fish dating profile, Charlton described his profession as student/aquatics. On Facebook, he called himself self-employed and wrote, 2 steps from the bottom and rising. The exclamation points masking desperation. By April 2016, John Charlton was at rock bottom. And Ingrid Lyne was about to pay the ultimate price. But here's what Ingrid didn't know. John Charlton had been convicted of aggravated robbery in 2006. The victim? A woman he'd met on a date. The method? He strangled her unconscious, then robbed her apartment. She survived. Barely. Ingrid wouldn't be so lucky. Because this time, John Charlton had learned from his mistakes. This time, he wouldn't leave a witness. That 2006 victim gave police a statement that would prove chillingly prophetic. She said, "When he was strangling me, he looked excited, like he was enjoying it. And when I passed out, the last thing I remember thinking was, he's done this before and he'll do it again." 10 years later, on a warm spring evening, Ingrid Lyne had no idea she was on a date with that same man. Friday, April 8, 2016. Opening day for the Seattle Mariners. A beautiful spring evening. Ingrid Lyne tells friends she's going on a date. She's excited. She's been seeing John for a few weeks now, and she wants to see where it goes. They watch the game together. Ingrid in her Mariners gear, smiling. John beside her. To anyone watching, they look like just another couple enjoying America's pastime. But as the evening progresses, something shifts. After the game, they go to a bar. John starts drinking heavily. Ingrid, ever the responsible one, nurses a single drink. She has to get home. Her daughters are coming back in the morning. Around midnight, They return to Ingrid's home in Renton. Her daughters aren't there, they're spending the night with their father. The house is quiet, empty. Ingrid doesn't know it yet, but these are the last hours of her life. What happened inside that house in the early morning hours of April 9th? John Charlton would later claim he was too drunk to remember, that he blacked out, that when he woke up, he was lying on a downtown Seattle sidewalk with injuries to his face and scratches on his body. But the evidence would tell a different story, a story of premeditation, of violence, and of unspeakable horror, because investigators would later discover something on John Charlton's phone. A Google search, made at 1:47 a.m., approximately 1 hour before Ingrid died. The search term? How long does it take to bleed out from strangulation? He wasn't drunk. He wasn't blacked out. He was researching, planning. And Ingrid was upstairs, completely unaware that in less than 60 minutes, she would be fighting for her life. Sunday, April 10th. While the public reels from news of the body parts discovery, Seattle homicide detectives are working around the clock. They've identified Ingrid Lyne. They've identified her last known contact, John Charlton. Now they need evidence. A search warrant is executed at Ingrid's Renton home at 8:47 p.m. Lead Detective Sarah Jensen and her team don protective gear. They have no idea what they're about to find. The bathroom door is closed. From underneath, a faint smell. Bleach. And something else. Something metallic. What they find inside makes even the most seasoned investigators step back in horror. A 15-inch pruning saw lying against the bathtub. In the bathtub drain, bits of human flesh. Blood. Tissue. The porcelain still stained despite desperate attempts to wash it away. But it's what they find next that changes everything. Lodged deep in the drain trap, fragments of Ingrid's teeth, and strands of her hair, still attached to small pieces of scalp. But here's what makes every detective's blood run cold. On the bathroom counter, they discover something that reveals this wasn't a crime of passion. This was calculated. This was planned. An empty box of kitchen trash bags. What? Hefty brand. Identical to the bags found in the recycling bin. But underneath that box, another empty box. Same brand. Same size. John Charlton didn't bring one box of garbage bags to dispose of Ingrid's body. He brought 2. That's 40 garbage bags. He planned to use them all. Which means there are still bags missing. Still parts of Ingrid hidden somewhere in Seattle. This is the primary crime scene. This is where Ingrid died. This is where she was systematically dismembered. And this is where investigators realize John Charlton is still out there. With Ingrid's car. With some of her remains. And he's had a 48-hour head start. 10:23 p.m. Downtown Seattle. A patrol officer's routine scan of license plates gets a hit. Ingrid's 2015 Toyota Highlander. Parked on a sidewalk. Still running. Driver's door open. The officer approaches cautiously. The engine is warm. The keys are in the ignition. On the passenger seat, a receipt from a hardware store. Timestamp, Saturday morning, 6:47 a.m. 3 hours after Ingrid's murder. Items purchased, bleach, trash bags, saw blades. But when crime scene technicians process the vehicle, they make a discovery that sends the investigation into overdrive. Under UV light, the interior of Ingrid's SUV lights up. Blood. Everywhere. On the seats. The floor mats. The steering wheel. And in the cargo area, something that confirms detectives' worst fears. Drag marks. In Ingrid's own blood. Leading from the rear hatch to the back seats. She was transported in multiple trips. Multiple bags. Multiple locations. And based on the evidence, there are still more dump sites to be found. Friday, April 15th, nearly a week after Ingrid's murder, proves the detective's theory correct. A garbage collector on 20th Avenue discovers a cooler that wasn't there the day before. Inside, more human remains wrapped in the same white garbage bags. Hours later, at a recycling center on South Hanford Street, workers make yet another discovery. More bags. More remains. Seattle Police spokesperson Lieutenant Grant Ballingham addresses the media, I would imagine that the huge majority of officers can go through a 30 or 35-year career and never encounter a situation like this. 5 confirmed locations. All within a 3-mile radius. All accessible from where Ingrid's car was found. But here's what makes every detective's blood run cold. When they analyzed Charlton's cell phone GPS data, it showed him making 7 trips that night. 7. They'd only found 5 dump sites. Which meant 2 more locations were out there. 2 more bags. 2 more pieces of Ingrid. And time was running out. Because with every passing hour, the evidence was decomposing. And John Charlton was about to do something that would shock even the most hardened investigators. Monday, April 11, 2016. Less than 72 hours after Ingrid's body parts were discovered, Seattle Police Chief Kathleen O'Toole makes an announcement that brings temporary relief to a terrified city. John Robert Charlton is arrested and booked into King County Jail for investigation of homicide. Detectives have been tracking him since Saturday. Every movement, every contact. But where they found him, nobody expected. Detectives receive a tip at 7:15 a.m. A homeless shelter worker recognizes Charlton from news coverage. He's been sleeping there since Saturday night, eating meals, showering, chatting with other residents, acting completely normal. In the interrogation room, Charlton's demeanor strikes investigators as odd. Detectives describe him as nonchalant, almost bored. When asked about Ingrid's disappearance, he appears annoyed at the inconvenience. He has abrasions on his forehead and hand, injuries to his lip and chin, scratches across his chest, defensive wounds, signs of a struggle. He repeats his story, went to the Mariners game, went to a bar, got drunk, went back to Ingrid's house, thinks they had sex though he can't really remember, she was acting weird, though he can't describe how, then he blacked out and woke up on a sidewalk in downtown Seattle. The detective slides a photograph across the table. Then another. And another. Crime scene photos. What they found in Ingrid's bathroom. What they found in the recycling bins. What they found in her car. Detectives watch carefully, waiting for the breakdown. The confession. The tears. The remorse. But what happens next stuns everyone in the room. John Charlton looks at the photos. And he smiles. Not a nervous smile. Not a smile of discomfort. A smile of satisfaction. One detective would later testify. He was proud of it. Like he'd accomplished something. Then Charlton says something that changes everything investigators thought they knew about this case. You want to know what happened? Fine. I'll tell you. But you're asking the wrong questions. You think this started Friday night? You think I just snapped because I was drunk? I've been planning this for 3 weeks. Since the second date. 3 weeks. John Charlton had been planning Ingrid's murder for 3 weeks. Which means every date after that second meeting was reconnaissance. Every laugh was an act. Every kiss was part of a timeline that ended with Ingrid dead in her own bathtub. But why? Why target Ingrid specifically? The answer is even more disturbing. Charlton continues, she reminded me of someone. My ex-wife. The one who got the restraining order. The one who told everyone I was dangerous. I wanted to prove her right. Ingrid Lyne was a substitute. A surrogate. She died not because of anything SHE did, but because she resembled someone from John Charlton's past. A woman who escaped him. A woman who saw the danger and got away. Ingrid never stood a chance. From the moment John Charlton saw her profile online, she was already dead. He just hadn't killed her yet. When pressed, Charlton reveals one final detail that will haunt investigators forever. I told you you're asking the wrong questions. You want to know if I'm sorry? You want to know if I'd do it again? In a heartbeat. And I would have. If you hadn't caught me. Those words, I would have, confirm what investigators suspected but hoped wasn't true. When they arrested John Charlton, he wasn't finished. He was already hunting for victim number 2. On Charlton's phone, detectives discover he'd been messaging 3 other women. All single mothers. All nurses. All with eerily similar profiles to Ingrid's. One had even agreed to meet him that Wednesday. Her name is being withheld for her protection. But she has no idea how close she came to being victim number 2. 3 days. She was 3 days away from the same fate as Ingrid Lyne. April 13, 2016. Charlton makes his first court appearance. King County prosecutors formally charge him with first-degree premeditated murder and theft of a motor vehicle. The word premeditated is crucial. It means this wasn't a crime of passion. This was cold-blooded, calculated. Exactly as Charlton himself admitted. Bail is set at $5 million. The judge issues an unusual order. No photographs of Charlton's face can be published. The goal is to prevent prejudicing a potential jury. But there would be no jury trial. Not for this case. Because John Charlton has one more surprise in store. 18 months would pass before sentencing. 18 months of Charlton sitting in jail, calculating his next move. But what prosecutors, defense attorneys, and even the judge didn't know was that Ingrid's ex-husband had been working tirelessly on something. He'd been trying to crack the password on Ingrid's laptop for 2 years. And just 3 days before sentencing, he finally succeeded. What he found in her journal would explode into that courtroom like a bomb. And it would reveal the real reason John Charlton killed Ingrid Lyne. That woman who almost became victim number 2 would later tell reporters, "I thought he was charming. I thought he was safe. I thought I was being careful by meeting in a public place. But none of that would have mattered. Because he'd already chosen me. Already planned it. I was 3 days away from being in those garbage bags." While she processed her near-death experience, a community was gathering to remember the woman who wasn't so fortunate. April 12, 2016. Near Ingrid's Renton home, hundreds gather for a vigil. Candles flicker in the evening breeze. Neighbors who waved to Ingrid at her mailbox. Colleagues from Swedish Medical Center who worked alongside her. Friends who knew her laugh, her spirit, her dedication to her daughters. Friend Jim Morrell speaks through tears. She was smart with a sharp sense of humor. She was a great mother and friend. We're all hurting. Swedish Medical Center releases a statement. Ingrid's death has been incredibly tragic and shocking for all of us. Our hearts are heavy as this news brings a feeling of profound loss for the Swedish family and all who knew and loved Ingrid. At the memorial, visitors leave notes for Ingrid's 3 daughters, 10, 8, and 6 years old. "They are not alone," one friend declares. "We will make sure of it." A GoFundMe campaign is launched for the girls' future. The community responds with overwhelming generosity. Over $270,000 is raised, a testament to how deeply Ingrid touched lives and how desperately people wanted to help the daughters she left behind. Neighbor Edward Franciscina, who saw Ingrid as a daughter, speaks to reporters. "She was always smiling. Always had time to chat. This neighborhood, we all see each other, we know each other, we keep an eye out for each other. It was just an ordinary day. She said hi and I said hi back, just like any other day. It was the last time he would ever see her alive." But while the community mourned, while candles burned, while 3 little girls tried to understand why mommy wasn't coming home, John Charlton sat in his jail cell with a secret that would explode into the courtroom 18 months later. A secret about why he really killed Ingrid. And it had nothing to do with being drunk, nothing to do with a blackout, and everything to do with something far more sinister. Something that would prove this murder was about money, greed, and a plan that went back further than anyone imagined. That secret Charlton was hiding? It would change everything. But first, 18 months had to pass. 18 months of Charlton sitting in jail, calculating his next move. 18 months of his defense team scrambling to find a way to save him from life in prison. And 18 months of Ingrid's family living with the unbearable question, why? Why did he do it? The answer was about to surface, and it would prove that Ingrid's murder was even more cold-blooded than anyone imagined. October 2, 2017. In a King County courtroom, John Robert Charlton stands before Judge Julie Spector. His attorneys have negotiated a deal with prosecutors. In exchange for avoiding trial, Charlton will plead guilty to first-degree premeditated murder and theft of a motor vehicle. The recommended sentence, 27 years and 9 months in prison. The high end of the sentencing range. It's not life. But under Washington state law, given Charlton's criminal history in other states doesn't count toward his sentencing range, it's the best prosecutors can do. Charlton signs a statement. For the first time, he admits what happened. He strangled Ingrid Lyne in the early morning hours of April 9, 2016. He killed her in her own home, in her own bathroom, while her daughter's beds sat empty down the hall, waiting for their mother to tuck them in the next night. King County Prosecutor Dan Satterberg addresses the media. Our community was shocked by the senseless murder of Ingrid Lyne. We have charged the most serious crimes we could under the law, and now that this defendant has pled guilty, we will be recommending the maximum prison sentence. For Ingrid's family, the guilty plea is bittersweet. It spares them the agony of a graphic, gruesome trial. But it also denies them a full public accounting of what happened to Ingrid. The details of her final moments. The suffering she endured. The violence inflicted upon her. But they wouldn't have to wait long. Sentencing was set for January 5, 2018. What no one in that courtroom knew, not the prosecutors, not the defense attorneys, not even the judge, was that Phil Lyne had spent the last 2 years trying to crack the password on Ingrid's laptop. And just 3 days before sentencing, he finally succeeded. What he found in her journal would blow the case wide open, would reveal the real reason John Charlton killed Ingrid, and would prove that this wasn't just murder, it was attempted insurance fraud. Because John Charlton wasn't just planning to kill Ingrid. He was planning to get paid for it. January 5, 2018. Nearly 2 years after Ingrid's murder. The courtroom in King County Superior Court is packed. Family members, friends, colleagues, members of the community who never knew Ingrid but felt connected to her story. All here for one purpose, justice. John Charlton enters, shackled and flanked by guards. He's gained weight in prison. His hair is longer. But his eyes, they hold the same emptiness they had in that interrogation room 2 years ago. Phil Lyne, Ingrid's ex-husband and father of her 3 daughters, approaches the microphone. He hasn't slept in days. He's rehearsed this statement 100 times. But when he opens his mouth to speak, emotion overwhelms him. John Charlton stole my co-parent and sounding board. He stole my daughter's devoted and compassionate mother. In the gallery sit 3 young women. Noelle, Brooke, Reese, now 12, 10 and 8 years old. They insisted on being here, on looking their mother's killer in the eye. Phil continues, there will be no more motherly advice from Ingrid. No more July 4th holidays in Big Fork, Montana. No more trips to the beach or Thursday night dinners at the steakhouse. Their children, Ingrid's grandchildren, will never have a maternal grandmother. But you know what the worst part is, John? My daughters remember that Friday. They remember their mom getting ready for her date. They remember her kissing them goodbye. They remember her saying, "I'll see you tomorrow, babies."
Our daughters continue to thrive, but miss their mother every day in different ways.
And they never did. But Phil isn't finished. He has something else to say. Something that will change the trajectory of this entire sentencing. Phil pulls out additional papers, hands shaking with anger. Your Honor, there's something else the court needs to know. Something we discovered 3 days ago. Judge Spector leans forward. Mr. Lyne, what are you referring to? We found Ingrid's journal. She'd been keeping it on her laptop, password protected. It took us 2 years to access it. And in her final entry, dated April 7, 2016, the day before she was murdered, she wrote something that proves this wasn't just premeditated. It was even more calculated than we thought. The courtroom erupts in murmurs. Prosecutors look stunned. They knew nothing about this journal. Defense attorneys are objecting. But Judge Spector raises her hand for silence. Phil reads from the journal, April 7th. John asked me today if I kept any life insurance policies. He said he was worried about me, a single mom with 3 kids. He suggested I make him the beneficiary, just in case, since we were getting serious. I told him no. I told him that seemed too fast. He got quiet. Really quiet. Then he said, "That's okay. I understand." But something in his eyes changed. I can't explain it. For the first time since I met him, I felt scared. Life insurance. John Charlton tried to get himself named as beneficiary on Ingrid's life insurance policy the day before he killed her. When she refused, he knew he had to act fast. Before she could break up with him. Before she could tell anyone about his disturbing request. The prosecutor stands, "Your Honor, this fundamentally changes the nature of this crime. This wasn't just murder. This was attempted financial fraud and murder for profit that failed only because Ms. Lyne had the wisdom to refuse his request." Judge Spector looks directly at Charlton. "Mr. Charlton, did you or did you not ask Ms. Lyne to make you the beneficiary of her life insurance policy?" For 2 years, John Charlton has maintained his story. Drunk. Blacked out. Crime of passion. But now, confronted with Ingrid's own words, his carefully constructed narrative crumbles. Charlton confers frantically with his attorneys. I might have mentioned it. I don't remember the exact." Judge Spector slams her gavel. "Don't. You admitted in your interrogation that you planned this for 3 weeks. The journal entry is dated April 7th. You asked about the insurance on April 7th. You murdered her on April 9th. This court is not interested in your convenient memory lapses." The courtroom erupts. Because suddenly, everything makes sense. The planning. The timing. The brutality. John Charlton didn't kill Ingrid in a drunken rage. He killed her because she refused to make him the beneficiary of her life insurance policy. She saw through him. She said no. And that refusal signed her death warrant. Friend Nancy Civitili stands, voice shaking with rage. There are no words to describe the horror everyone felt. Ingrid wasn't just murdered. Her body was brutally violated. And now we know why. Because John Charlton is a coward. A greedy, pathetic coward who thought he could profit from her death. And then, something unprecedented happens. Something no one expected. The oldest daughter, Noelle, now 12 years old, asks to address the court. The prosecutor advises against it. Judge Spector offers to read a statement on her behalf. But Noelle refuses. She wants to look at the man who killed her mother. She wants him to hear her voice. What she says next brings the entire courtroom to tears. Including the guards. Including the stenographer. Including Judge Spector herself. Noelle speaks. "My mom didn't say no to you because she didn't trust you. She said no because she was smart. Because she was careful. Because she was protecting us. And you killed her for it. You killed her because she was a good mom. So I want you to know something. Every day you spend in prison, every single day, I'm going to live my life. I'm going to make my mom proud. I'm going to become a nurse, just like her. I'm going to help people just like her. And when you get out, when you walk free, I'll still be out here, living the life my mom should have lived. You took her from us. But you didn't take her from us. Because she's in everything I do. And you're just nothing." John Charlton stares at the floor. For 2 years, he's been emotionless. Cold. Calculating. But now, faced with the daughter of the woman he murdered, his mask finally cracks. A single tear rolls down his face. But it's too late for remorse. It's too late for redemption. Because now, Judge Spector has to deliver the sentence. Judge Spector closes her eyes. Takes a deep breath. And when she opens them again, she looks directly at John Charlton with an expression that makes even his defense attorneys flinch. Because what she's about to say will shock everyone in that courtroom. She's found a loophole. A legal technicality that no one saw coming. And if she's right, John Charlton might never walk free again. That loophole? The discovery of the insurance fraud motive changes everything. Because now, prosecutors can argue this wasn't just murder. It was felony murder committed during the attempt to commit fraud. And under Washington state law, that carries a different sentencing range. Judge Spector has the power to exceed the recommended sentence. The question is, will she? Judge Spector speaks. Ingrid Lyne lived life large, even though she was petite. She was a healer and a humanitarian. A mother who found her greatest joy in her 3 young daughters. Through the letters I received, I feel like I've come to know her in some small way. What you did was vicious and cruel beyond anyone's belief. Your crimes were and remain vicious and cruel beyond anyone's belief. Nothing can soften the cruelty with which you committed this murder. Your crime was made worse by what you did to Ingrid's body after she was killed. Dismembering her. disposing of her remains at different locations throughout Seattle's Central District. Some of her remains have never been found. You denied her daughters the right to bury their mother whole. You denied them closure. Judge Spector leans forward. I received so many letters telling me you should never be free from prison. If there ever was a case to issue a life sentence, this would be one, and I think you know that too. But here's what troubles me most, Mr. Charlton. The insurance fraud. Because that tells me something critical. This wasn't passion. This wasn't rage. This was a business transaction to you. Ingrid Lyne was worth more to you dead than alive. And that makes you one of the most dangerous offenders I've ever sentenced. Judge Spector pauses, looks at her notes, and then drops a bombshell that makes the prosecutor's eyes go wide. I've reviewed the case law. Under RCW 9.94A.535, I have the discretionary power to exceed the standard range when aggravating circumstances are proven. The attempt to profit from the victim's death through insurance fraud is an aggravating circumstance. The dismemberment and disposal of remains is an aggravating circumstance. The planning and premeditation is an aggravating circumstance. The defense attorney stands, panicked. Your Honor, this wasn't part of the plea agreement. The state agreed to. Judge Spector raises her hand. The state agreed before the insurance fraud evidence came to light. That changes the calculus. However, everyone holds their breath. This is it. This is the moment. Will Judge Spector use her discretionary power? Can she sentence Charlton to life? The entire courtroom waits. Judge Spector's face shows conflict, anger, frustration. However, my hands are ultimately tied by the plea agreement already entered. While I find your conduct to be among the most egregious I've encountered, I cannot unilaterally void a plea agreement over the objection of both parties. Therefore, I sentence you to 27 years and 9 months in prison, the maximum I can impose under the negotiated agreement, with credit for time served. The gavel strikes. The courtroom erupts in mixed reactions. Relief that Charlton is going away. Fury that it's not for life. Judge Spector isn't finished. She looks directly at Charlton with pure disgust. Mr. Charlton, if I could lock you up for life, I would. You are evil. You are calculating. You are dangerous. And when you are eventually released, you will be monitored for the rest of your natural life. I will personally ensure that the Department of Corrections flags your file as high risk for reoffense. Every parole board that reviews your case will know exactly what you are. And I pray that you never walk as a free man again.
Today is the close of a tragic end to a great life lived and ended far too soon.
Instead, handing down the harshest sentence legally possible, just over 27 years.
Charlton is given a moment to speak. He says only, I agree there are no words that can alleviate the pain I've caused. For that, I'm truly sorry.
I do agree that there are no words that can There's no words that can alleviate the pain that I've caused. And for that, I'm truly sorry.
But no one believes him. Not anymore. 27 years and 9 months. With good behavior, John Charlton could be released in his mid-60s. Still young enough to date again. Still young enough to hunt again. And prison records would later reveal something chilling. During his time in jail, Charlton requested access to the prison library's computer. His browsing history? Dating websites. True crime books about unsolved murders. And insurance fraud cases. He wasn't rehabilitating. He was studying. Planning for the day he walks free. And somewhere out there, another woman matching Ingrid's profile has no idea she might be next. That prison browsing history wasn't made public until 2023, 5 years after sentencing. When Phil Lyne learned about it through a victim notification system, he immediately contacted authorities. But there was nothing they could do. Charlton hadn't broken any prison rules. He was simply preparing for the day he walks free. For the day he can create another Ingrid Lyne story. Unless we learn from this one. Today, Ingrid Lyne's daughters are young women. Noelle is 21. Brooke is 19. Reese is 17. They've navigated first dates, proms, graduations, heartbreaks, and triumphs with an absence that never fades. Noelle kept her promise. She's studying nursing, following in her mother's footsteps, determined to heal people the way her mother did. Ingrid's murder sent shockwaves through the online dating community. Here was a responsible, educated single mother who did everything right. She met someone publicly. She told friends where she was going. She was cautious. And yet, it wasn't enough. The case highlighted the limitations of online dating platforms. Background checks are not mandatory. Criminal histories from other states may not appear in local searches. Red flags can be hidden behind charming profiles and carefully curated photos. And predators like John Charlton? They're experts at blending in. Ingrid's story is not unique. Every day in America, 3 women are murdered by their intimate partners. Some are killed by men they've known for years. Others, like Ingrid, by someone they've only recently started dating. The danger doesn't discriminate based on how long you've known someone. Warning signs to watch for: criminal history in multiple jurisdictions, estrangement from family members, substance abuse issues, history of violence or threats, pattern of unstable employment or housing, requests for financial information too early, isolation tactics, love bombing followed by coldness, refusal to meet friends or family. In hindsight, John Charlton exhibited numerous red flags. A criminal history spanning 6 states. Parents who feared him enough to seek a restraining order. A reference to Hannibal and telling his mother to beware. Alcoholism. Homelessness. A self-description as not a normal person. And that insurance question just days before the murder. But Ingrid likely never knew any of this. The man she met online presented a different version of himself. A version that was carefully crafted. Deliberately deceptive, strategically designed to lure victims. Phil Lyne has become an advocate for online dating safety. He speaks at schools, community centers, and domestic violence prevention conferences. His message is simple: trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. If someone asks about money or insurance too early, that's a red flag. If they isolate you from friends and family, that's a warning sign. And most importantly, being alone is better than being with the wrong person. The 3 Seattle locations where Ingrid's remains were found have returned to normalcy. People live their lives, walk their dogs, take out their recycling. Most don't know what happened there. But for those who do, these places serve as quiet reminders of evil's capacity to hide in plain sight. In Renton, Ingrid's memory lives on. Her colleagues at Swedish Medical Center still speak of her dedication. Her neighbors still remember her smile at the mailbox. Her friends still gather on her birthday to celebrate the life she lived, not just mourn the life that was stolen. To this day, 2 dump sites remain undiscovered. 2 bags that John Charlton disposed of that night. 2 pieces of Ingrid that her daughters can never lay to rest. Detectives have never stopped looking. But Seattle is a big city, and Charlton has never revealed where those final bags are hidden. Some believe it's his final act of cruelty. His last bit of control. Knowing that Ingrid can never be fully buried. Never be fully at peace. John Robert Charlton remains incarcerated in Washington State. He's currently housed at the Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla. With good behavior, he could be released in 2043. He will be 64 years old. Still young enough to date. Still dangerous enough to kill. Victim advocates are already preparing for his parole hearings. Ingrid's daughters will be there, making sure the board knows exactly what kind of man is asking for freedom. But while we wait for that day, women continue to date online, continue to take chances on new relationships, continue to hope for connection in an increasingly digital world. And predators like John Charlton? They continue to create profiles, continue to swipe, continue to hunt. The only difference now is that some women know Ingrid's story. Some women ask the hard questions. Some women trust their instincts. Some women say no when something feels wrong. And maybe, just maybe, that will save the next Ingrid Lyne. Ingrid Lyne was more than a victim. She was a mother who made pancakes on Sunday mornings. A nurse who held patients' hands during difficult procedures. A daughter who called her mom every day. A friend who showed up when you needed her. A woman who believed in second chances and new beginnings. Her greatest legacy is her 3 daughters. They carry her strength, her compassion, her spirit. They are proof that even when evil tries to extinguish light, it cannot destroy what love has built. Noelle, Brooke, and Reese have grown up in the shadow of unimaginable tragedy. But they haven't let that shadow consume them. They honor their mother not through anger or bitterness, but through living fully, through helping others, through refusing to let John Charlton define their story. Ingrid Lyne lived life large. And though her life was cut devastatingly short, the impact she made continues to ripple outward. In every life she touched. In every patient she healed. In every moment her daughters remember her love. In every woman who hears her story and makes safer choices. In every person who recognizes the warning signs and walks away. In every community that refuses to let violence against women become just another statistic. That is how we honor her. By remembering not how she died, but how she lived. By protecting others from the fate she suffered. By ensuring that her 3 daughters know their mother was extraordinary. That she was loved. That she mattered. That her life had meaning far beyond the horrible way it ended. And by making sure that when John Charlton comes up for parole in 2043, when he tries to convince a board that he's changed, that he's safe, that he deserves freedom, Ingrid's voice will still echo in that room. Through her daughters. Through her story. Through the legacy she left behind. Because Ingrid Lyne will never be just another victim. She will always be a mother, a healer, a daughter, a friend, a woman who lived life large, and who, even in death, continues to save lives by teaching us what warning signs look like. By showing us that evil often wears a charming smile. And by reminding us that the most dangerous predator is the one sitting right beside you, looking exactly like everyone else. Rest in peace, Ingrid Lyne. August 2, 1975 to April 8, 2016. Devoted mother, daughter, friend, and healer. Gone but never forgotten.